Hi, I'm Jason Sterling, and this is the RM Cascadian Growing Together series. In this episode, Reg and Max and Patrick are headed to the Batuu theme park, journeying to Batuu for a Star Wars vacation to celebrate Max's first birthday and Valentine's Day. Now, I have to admit, I don't really do anything for Max's birthday in this particular storyline. I'm not really ready to age him up yet to a toddler, not for a couple of more in story months. And there's not much you can do anyway. I could do a few scenes of him pretending to eat cake, maybe at his high chair with his face all covered with chocolate, right? But that's about it. Same thing's true of Valentine's Day. There is a sort of holiday in game that I think it's called Love Day or Friendship Day or something. I don't know. Anyway, I could try to follow maybe the mechanic for that and do all the little goal things for it. I did not do that. This is basically just to give a marker of where we are in the story because, all through this sort of series, we followed a string of holidays, and this is the next one, Valentine's Day, and it also happens to be Max's birthday. And what I really wanted to do was have a family vacation integrating the journey to Batuu theme park with my family from San Myshuno. You can see part of it here as we do these sort of sweep through shots. Now we're coming up on the first order area of this theme park of Batuu, or Black Spire Outpost as it's called. I heavily modified the lots in this particular game. On this particular lot, the first order or the bad guys, I did an underground sort of mock-up of a cruise ship in space based, of course, on Disney's real-life Galactic Star Cruiser, or at least what we thought of. We only had kind of artist renderings then. So I kind of did a mock-up based on those renderings and kind of how I imagined it. Plus, it's not exactly the Star Cruiser because it's not the Halcyon. This is the First Order's version, and I did a whole story when that pack came out that kind of explained what the First Order was up to running a cruise ship in space at Black Spire Outpost. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start on the Celestial Pyroclastium. That's the name of the ship. In Reg and Patrick's suite on board. They're hanging out in their room having a bit of a rest. And of course, Reg says, famous last words, what shall we do first, right? What first? What should we do first? It's a big park. If you've ever been to Disney World, which this is kind of based on a very small piece of Disney World, it's a huge park. There's like things spread out all over the place. So what first is a big question. Patrick, who is a little blasé about the whole thing, of course, says, he doesn't know. Just kind of look around, maybe get some lunch at the docking bay, take it easy, cause he's, famous last words, not really into this sort of stuff. And we immediately cut to him getting into this sort of stuff right off the bat, because he's already been alerted by Hondo that maybe there's a mission waiting for him at the cantina. And then he sees blue milk, and everybody wants to know what blue milk tastes like, right? He wants to know what blue milk tastes like. He runs right up to the blue milk stand. He's got to give himself some of that milk. There's the droid depot. He needs a droid. He's going to need a droid for his missions. He better get a droid. He better get Max a droid, too. Now, of course, Reg is like, wanting to slow him down, right? So slow it down a little bit. Max probably doesn't need a droid. Max is just barely 1 year old. But of course, as Patrick points out, it's Max's birthday, Reg. Come on. Don't be the mean dad here. Be the happy dad. They're at Disney World, and Patrick has a pocket full of money, obviously, because everything at Disney World's expensive. Patrick obviously has a pocket full of money. He's ready to spend, which is exactly the sort of customer that Disney likes. And they pass by the cantina, and Patrick's like, oh, I think Hondo's in there. Think he has a job for me. And then they pass by Doc Ondar's, which is kind of a gift shop type place. And he says, okay, no, wait. No, I do have to buy something now. Up until this point, Reg keeps kind of pushing him along, all right? Like, it's late in the afternoon, it's in the evening. Let's save some stuff for tomorrow. We don't want to drag all this stuff with us. Come on, let's keep going. But Patrick's going to stop at this one. He's going to stop at Doc Ondar's because there's something he has to get. And of course, it comes out with a little baby Ewok for their little baby Ewok, because Max, of course, is dressed as an Ewok. We don't have we don't have any. Let me rephrase that. We don't have any costumes in game really not for infants, for sure, right? We don't have anything for infants. Even toddlers, it's kind of, I don't know, not really. I mean, it's kind of in-universe clothing, but not really a costume, right? So, he brings out a baby Ewok for their baby Ewok because he's sweet. Patrick's a sweet guy. Hey, Reg, of course, can't help but comment. It looks like you're really not into this stuff. And Patrick, of course, is like, come on. You didn't take that seriously, right? Who couldn't be into this? Really, who couldn't be into this? It's fantastic. It looks like Star Wars. It's like being in the movie. Did you ever want to be Han Solo? Do you want to be Luke Skywalker? Do you want to bring your baby Ewok to buy a baby Ewok? Walk around a pretend spaceport. Well, Disney's got you covered. Actually, I do love it, by the way. My excitement is real, even just thinking back. Galaxy's Edge at Disney World is one of my favorite parts of Disney World. I do like Star Wars a lot. So it's always a lot of fun for me to play this pack. And it was fun kind of putting together this story for the same reason. Then returned to the ship for some well-deserved dinner after that long walk around Black Spire Outpost. Now, one thing I thought was really weird, Reg is getting ready to kind of feed Max and stuff. And this guy from like, one of the like food stalls I put in place, right, to kind of replicate a food court. He comes over and just stands there and stares. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for us to make a mess? Is that the deal? You're just waiting for us to make a mess, right? You just know my kid's going to make a mess and I'm going to walk away and leave it here. Well, just because you're here, that's what I'm going to do. No, that's not what we did. We didn't do that. Now, yeah, Max made a little bit of a mess, but Reg cleaned it up afterwards like a good tourist does. And we left the First Order waiter Nazi behind and went back to our room, got a good night's sleep, and headed out the next day for the real adventure, the real playthrough. Patrick, as you know, is already into it. He's already contacted Hondo. He's already set up a meeting for later in the day. But first they're going to head off back to the Droid Depot. He's anxious to get I was anxious to get a droid too. He's anxious to get a droid. He wants to get his droid. Reg goes first. Reg grabs the droid first. He gets an RUUSLS droid, which is exactly what I got. RU useless droid from in the game. And Patrick gets a more traditional R2-D2 unit. No, we did not buy one for Max. I did decide that maybe a 1-year-old doesn't need his own droid. He can just kind of play with Dad's droid, right? We head out of there. We're going to head to the Cantina region. I kind of think of that as downtown Black Spire Outpost. And after that, lightsabers follow. They build some lightsabers because that is the weapon of choice in the Star Wars galaxy for the good guys, or at least for the Jedi. They're scoundrels, of course. They're not really the good guys, but there weren't any blasters in this game, just lightsabers. So they got lightsabers instead of blasters. They had a quick battle. Patrick did win, but they're still friends. They took it as friendly, took it very friendly. I like to imagine they reenacted the whole, all women are queens. If she breathes, she's the thought type of scene. That's my thought there. And after that, they go back to Doc Ondar's, pick up a whole bunch of crap to bring home to remind them of their adventure and their journey. Like most everything else when it comes to shopping in this, of course, it is just a rabbit hole. I would have liked to have seen a true mock-up of like a store, even if you just went up to a counter, like with Realm of Magic, those sort of things. But it's entirely a rabbit hole, but that's fine. We did get some pretty cool stuff. And, as you can see from the prices here, this is pretty realistic. Disney's really expensive. I put the two of them up in a special room at the Cantina. Again, as I said, I heavily remodeled the lots here in Black Spire Outpost in the game pack. One thing I did was attach a small room, looks like an individual kind of house onto the side of the Cantina. That's where they're going to stay this night. Beneath the Cantina, I have a much larger apartment and a couple of other little sort of rooms that you can use for your Sims to stay overnight. The large apartment's really great for a family, although Reg and Patrick and the baby stayed in this smaller place really quite well. And once they were settled, they went to meet Hondo. They need to get their smuggling mission. Now, the secret to getting that mission is beating Hondo and Sabak, which is not easy because Hondo cheats. So the secret to beating Hondo and Sabak, I really do feel, is to cheat too. Basically, I did have Patrick finally cheat, and he did finally win. And I think it's okay because I think cheating might be a cultural thing with Hondo's people, where he's from. So I feel like I'm just kind of adapting myself to his culture by cheating. And that was really after I finally did break down and do it, because it did take a long time. Like even Reg got up and left. He's like, I'm done. I'm over. I don't care if we smuggle or not. He goes to check on the baby, right? Some other people come and go, like some people come in. They get bored. They leave too. Patrick's still sticking it out. He's losing all this money. He's just going at it. He cheats. He wins. And he goes to get a well-deserved meal and drink. Where he meets a brand new friend. Yulani Lang comes up and has a seat next to him. She is also on the Pyro class Sims. She's also enjoying a vacation there at Black Spire Outpost. And she naturally asks Patrick, are you having a good time? He says, of course, he is, almost too much of a good time. And that he has finally bested Hondo at Sabak. She, of course, knows this is no easy task and says so because, as she points out, Hondo cheats. Hondo overhears her real quick, as you can see there. Kind of threw that in that he's walking past and hears her say that, but he knows he cheats. So what's he going to say, really? Patrick also knows he cheats, and she throws in also that she noticed he's traveling with someone and asked, hey, is that your husband and your kid? He clarifies that that's Reg, and no, they are not married, and Max is not his kid. He is Reg's kid. She thinks they should be married, though. She thinks they'd make a really cute family and seem like they really belong together. She goes on to tell him, of course, that they could get married right there on the Pyroclastium. Lieutenant Agnon would be happy to do the ceremony for only $20,000 more, which is kind of based a little bit on a real Disney thing. You can kind of get married at Disney, of course, and I think Mickey Mouse will show up or something. I don't know. Everything costs so much money. $20,000 is kind of a low conservative estimate. I think that's like the cheapest it costs, right? So I threw in, for a quick 20-minute ceremony on board the Celestial Pyroclastium, where Lieutenant Agnon will marry you and the love of your life together. $20,000, you're good to go. Patrick's not convinced, of course, especially at $20,000, but he's also not convinced because he's like, okay, so he loves me, so what? So is that what happens? You love someone and you go get married? Is that what it is? Not love, not marriage, love, marriage? Or is there varying levels? And do you eventually reach a level of marriage, right? I mean, surely you don't meet someone and you're in love and that means marriage right at that minute. Aren't there kind of varying levels of love? Now she concedes, of course, okay, sure, you have a point. Still, you guys should get married. Yulani must be a romantic at heart, I guess. But Patrick asks her, of course, hey, well, are you married? Are you married? And she says, no, she is not. But then again, she's also not in love. Now, Patrick's not going to let it go just that easily, of course, as he says, there's more to it than that. You can love somebody and not actually want to live with them. And you can live with someone and not actually love them. And even more so, you just have the fact of two different people with two different lives trying to blend that together and make one new whole life. And that's not as easy as just, we're in love, let's get married. Yulani, though, is also not buying it, as she says, well, it seems like you two are fitting together pretty well. At that moment, Patrick gets rescued by Reg walking up. I know we've all been there. And but talking to someone at the bar, just praying, please let anybody I know or anybody I don't know walk up and save me from this mess. That's what happens with Patrick, of course. He doesn't want to talk about this any longer. Reg walks up and says, hey, I finally got Max off to sleep. So, are we working for Hondo now? Patrick says yes, that he did beat him, and yes, they are working for him. And then he introduces Yulani and says that, she's on the ship as well, and she thinks we should get married, which takes Reg by surprise, of course, too. And Reg is like, that must have been quite the conversation. I must have been gone longer than I thought, and he was gone longer than he thought. Now they kind of go on and talk about a few other things and eventually wrap up the night. It is getting late, and they've got a big mission tomorrow. They're going to go take on a smuggling mission for Hondo, where they're going to access another person's home and liberate some sort of package that actually belongs to Hondo, but it maybe was accidentally delivered to this other residence by mistake. And why trouble UPS? We don't need to trouble UPS. We don't need to trouble the original shipper. We'll just go, we'll access this particular residence. We'll just get this one package that does belong to Hondo. He's assured us of that. And then we'll bring it back. And that's going to be our mission, right? So they set about doing it. And, of course, the First Order that has no real legal authority on Batuu or at Blackspire Outpost, mind you. This planet is not a member of the First Order. Has to come and stick their nose into places where it doesn't belong. And, yeah, maybe the argument can be made that this isn't strictly legal. But so what? Is the First Order the police? If they think it's not legal, they should call the Black Spire security forces, and sometime tomorrow they'll show up to look into the matter, and that's how things work on Batuu. But no, they have to stick their nose into it. Now, luckily, Patrick does manage to handle that first interference. But he and Reg decide, hey, let's split this up. Reg is going to run interference. He's going to go and keep the guards distracted, right? In just the way that Reg knows how, using charm. Using his charm, he's going to keep the lonely First Order guards on Batuu, because it's a lonely post, you guys. They're really lonely. They are. And they're happy to stand there and talk to Reg all afternoon while Patrick gets back to work using his R2 unit to slice into the data stored within that entry pad and find a way inside, which fairly quickly they do. Patrick goes in, he grabs the package. It's a happy day. It's been a very successful day. And as Patrick says there at the end, maybe thinking about what Yulani had to say. Maybe that's still stuck in his head a little bit. When do you reach love level marriage? He says, you know, Reg, we make a really good team. They head off to dinner there in the cantina, and it's getting close to the end of their vacation, of course. And Patrick decides to broach the subject that he's been holding off broaching a little bit, and that is that he has sent in an audition video for this potential television show in Del Sol. Reg is not entirely surprised, of course. It's a big opportunity, right? And he says, really? So it's moving forward, right? Do you think they'll actually do it? Will they actually cut a pilot? Patrick doesn't want to commit. He's got a lot of thoughts going through his head, and he's like, oh, you know, I mean, who knows? Who knows what they'll do? And that's actually true because it is Del Sol, and Del Sol's like Hollywood, and you never really know. Hollywood makes tons of shit all the time they never do anything with, right? So Patrick's like, I don't know. Sure, I mean, maybe. But, you know, I want to know what they'll say. You know, he's kind of curious. Would he work in that sort of part? What do they think about him? Do they think he'd make a good television host? But he also has to think about what does he think about it? Not what do they just think about him. What does he think about him? Because it's a big decision. And it means a lot of changes. And he basically says that, you know, I have a big decision. I have a lot to think about. Now, Reg knows that. And Reg even says, hey, you know, a couple of years ago, I had a big decision to make. And in a lot of ways, Reg still regrets that decision. But in just as many ways, he actually is really happy he still made that decision. Because just as much good came of it as bad. And that's really life. That's what happens in a lot of cases. You make a decision and it's not all great and it's not all bad. It's a mixture of both. And despite the fact that it's not all good or all bad, you still can't really look back and say you would change anything. And that's life. When you look back, when you look at where you've come from to get to where you are, it was both the good and the bad that brought you to that point. And changing anything would change who you are because it's not, if you go back in time and you make everything good, you're going to end up a totally different person. Good and bad forms a different person than someone who's only gone all through good. And if you go just through good instead of good and bad, you're not going to get to where you are right now. And unless you are just really, really miserable in life, some people are, I get that. But unless you are just really, really miserable in life, you have to accept the fact that where you are right now, you would never be there. And the person you are right now, you wouldn't be if you went back in time and changed. Whatever it is you're thinking you could change. And Reg throws in at the end, we do make a good team. And Patrick's still thinking about Yulani because here she was. This person came out of the blue and said, you two are in love. And Reg's kid loves you. And you two, the three of you, make a really great family. And in some ways, he's a little uneasy by that. Not the fact that they make a great family. Not the fact that Reg is in love with him or he's in love with Reg or anything like that. He's a little uneasy by the fact she said it. It was so almost forced. It was an odd sort of conversation to come up and start with someone that you've met about 30 seconds ago. So he feels a little uneasy about it. And he has good reason to feel uneasy about it. Chance that Yulani was there. And it wasn't chance that she sat down to speak to him and get to know him. There is a bit more to Yulani than meets the eye. She is the third leg in the proverbial stool. And she is just as interested in Reg and Patrick and Max and a few other people as Daniel Cassadine is or Tom Gerald. It's Easter in Spring San Myshuno. Max is going to go looking for some Easter eggs in the new park, and Reg is going to get a big visit from his biggest regret. As though fate themselves has brought the past back to Reg to remind him of everything he regretted but also everything that he's happy came of his decision. So that'll be next time in Easter, and This Guy's in Love with You. Following that will be the very last episode of this particular series, Memorial Day, and If You Ever Wondered What Became of Me, where we'll have two changed people facing decisions that will change, once again, the rest of their lives from here on out. In the meantime, please hit like, subscribe, and notify. Catch the rest of that and build videos and build tours and some reviews along the way. Horse Ranch is on its way, so we'll be taking a look at that in a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching.